Dumb Husky and his white cat Shizun. Chapter 52. This venerable one didn't even get an appearance. Shui Zhenyang was practicing his sword at the northern peak when a haitang blossom floated over. He uttered a curious and caught it. While drying his sweat with a towel, he muttered to himself, Yu Heng's messenger haitang? He can't even be bothered to come over to talk anymore. When did he get so lazy? But he still took the golden orb of light from the flower's center and placed it in his ear. Out came the unfamiliar voice of a child, Sect Master, please come to the Red Lotus Pavilion at your earliest convenience. Shui Zhenyang didn't believe it at first, but when he stepped off from his sword in front of Chu Wanning's residence, he was completely dumbfounded. A child of about 5 or 6 years old stood in the pavilion by the lotus pond with a hand held behind his back, gazing at the lotus with a face of gloom. Looking from the side, this person had a frosty expression and icy eyes to match. He was draped in Chu Wanning's robes, but they were really way too big on him, pooling on the ground, sleeve hem and all, looking like a fish who is towing behind its huge sweeping tail. Shui Zhenyang. The child turned around and if you laugh I will kill you and then myself message was practically written on his face. Shui Zhenyang, pfffftt, ha 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 ha. The child slapped the table angrily, what are you laughing at? What's so funny? I am definitely not Lao ah ha ha ha. Oh heavens, I can't, Yu Heng, I told you to go to Tanlang Elder to get that wound checked out, but you just wouldn't listen, ha 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 ha, I can't breathe. Shui Zhenyang roared with laughter, holding his stomach with both hands. I've never seen a child with such a murderous aura, ah ha 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 ha. This child was none other than the Chu Wanning who had awoken to find that he had shrunk. The vine that pierced his shoulder at Jinchinj Lake must have been enchanted with some kind of curse that turns those stricken back into their 5 or 6-year-old selves. Thankfully his spiritual power did not also revert, else Chu Wanning felt like he really might as well just die. Shui Zhenyang went to fetch a set of small-sized uniform for younger disciples, laughing the whole way there and back. Chu Wanning finally looked a little less comical after changing into the more fitting clothes. He straightened out the silver-trimmed blue handguards, looked up to shoot Shui Zhenyang a glare, then said vehemently, if you dare tell anyone, I will end you. Shui Zhenyang laughed as he said, I won't. I won't. But what are you going to do about this? I don't know anything about healing, so you have to get someone to take a look, right? How about I ask Tanlang Elder to come over? Chu Wanning swept his sleeves angrily, but the sleeves of the disciple uniforms were tight and form-fitting, waving them around didn't have the same effect at all. He grew even more grumpy. Come over and do what? Law at me. Then how about I ask my wife to come take a look? Chu Wanning pressed his lips together and said nothing, looking indignant. I'll take that as a yes then. Chu Wanning only turned his back to him. Shui Zhenyang knew he was in a bad mood, but the sight was really too funny. He tried to hold back but ultimately failed, and once again burst into uproarious laughter. Tianwen appeared with a whoosh, Chu Wanning glaring at him out of the corner of his eye. I dare you to laugh again. All right, all right. No more laughing. I'll go call my wife over right away, ah ha 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 ha. Shui Zhenyang ran off and returned in no time with a worried Madame Wang in tow. Madame Wang froze as soon as she saw Chu Wanning, and a long while passed before she finally managed with disbelief, Yu Heng Elder. Chu Wanning. Thankfully, Madame Wang was a kind and compassionate doctor, unlike her husband. She asked Chu Wanning some questions while looking him over, then softly said, Elder Yu Heng's spiritual energy circulation is fine, and there's nothing abnormal about your body either. Nothing seems to have changed aside from having turned into a child. Chu Wanning asked, does the madam know of a way to break the curse? Madame Wang shook her head. Elder Yu Heng's injury was caused by an ancient willow vine. I'm afraid there is no other known case of this ailment, so I do not know how to treat it. Chu Wanning lowered his lashes, stunned, and was speechless for a while. Madame Wang couldn't bear the sight and hurriedly said, "Yu Hang elder, based on what I have seen, the most likely cause of your current state is that the willow vines likely contained a self-healing secretion that got into your wound, and not actually a curse, else it wouldn't have taken this long to take effect. It was probably only a very slight amount of the secretion, and was only able to affect your body because you were overworking yourself day after day. How about you take care and rest up for a few days, and see if anything changes." Chu Wanning was silent for a while, then sighed, "There's nothing else for it?" "Many thanks, madam." "You're welcome." Madame Wang gave him another careful once-over. "With the elder's current appearance, as long as you don't tell them, no one will be able to tell it's you." She wasn't wrong. Even Chu Wanning himself had forgotten what he was like at 5 or 6. Looking at his reflection in the pond, other than some vague similarities in facial features, he didn't look very much like his grown-up self at all. Finally feeling slightly relieved, he looked up at Xue Zhenyang to say, "Sect Master, I'm going to go into seclusion at the Red Lotus Pavilion for a few days. Please look after my disciples." "That's a matter of course. Xue Er is my son, Ran Er is my nephew, and Shi Mei is a disciple of Shizun Peak. Of course I'll look after them." Xue Zhenyang grinned, "You just worry about yourself." But 3 days of meditation later and there still wasn't even the slightest sign of his body going back to normal. Chu Wanning couldn't help feeling even more anxious, totally unable to take care and rest up as directed by Madame Wang. One evening, Chu Wanning finally couldn't handle the restless feeling any longer. Meditation wasn't doing anything anyway, might as well go take a stroll down the mountain, and get some things off his mind. It was after dinner and before evening classes, so Shizun Peak's paths and corridors were full of disciples, but no one really paid him any mind. Chu Wanning strolled around for a bit, then went to the bamboo forest near the platform of sin and virtue. The elders each had their own favored practice area that they always took their disciples to for cultivation and training. This bamboo forest was Chu Wanning's. The tranquil rustling of bamboo leaves filled the air. Chu Wanning plucked a leaf and idly blew a melody with it. The crisp, serene note soothing his agitated mind. But it wasn't long before the sound of footsteps approached and stopped near him. "Oi, kiddo." Chu Wanning opened his eyes. It was Xue Meng, long-legged and slim-waisted, standing proudly amidst the bamboo forest, the sword Longcheng glistening in hand as he declared towards him, "I'm going to practice sword here. Go blow your leaf elsewhere." The end of Chu Wanning's eyebrow went up a bit. It was quite a strange feeling to have Xue Meng ordered him around like this. He thought for a moment, then said, "I'll play my leaf, you can practice your sword, there's no interference." Xue Meng said, "No way. Hurry and leave, or my sword might accidentally cut you. You can't hurt me." Xue Meng clicked his tongue, patience running thin. "Don't say I didn't warn you then. If you get injured later, it's none of my business," he said. He unsheathed Longcheng with a powerful sound, like the hiss of a serpent emerging from the depths of a lagoon and soaring into the skies. Instantly, Longcheng became a dancing shadow in Xue Meng's hand. Amidst the flying leaves, a brilliant trail in its wake as light reflected off the blade. One slice rendered a leaf into 10 pieces, the force of it plucking more leaves from the bamboo trees. Pierce, thrust, swipe, and slash, every motion smooth as the glide of snow in wind. Even a 50-year-old cultivator would praise such an impressive display, not to mention a 5-year-old child. But even when Xue Meng had gone through 10 forms, the child was still just sitting on his rock playing his leaf, as if there was nothing astounding or even noteworthy happening in front of him. Xue Meng got a bit irritated, sheathed his blade and leaped down from the upper regions of the bamboo forest, landing lightly before Chu Wanning. "Kid. Hey, kid, I'm talking to you." Chu Wanning lowered the leaf and slowly opened his eyes to look expressionlessly at him. "What is it?" Did your master not teach you to be courteous when speaking to others? Don't just go hey this and hey that, I have a name. Why would I care to know your name? Xuemeng was going to be nice about it, but the rest of his good humor vanished after those thorny words. Swords don't have eyes, scram off to the side before mine cuts your head off. Chu Wanning replied with an air of indifference, if you can't even avoid my head, is there even any point to you practicing the sword? You. Xuemeng had never been thus disputed in all his life, and by a beginner disciple who doesn't even reach up to his thigh, at that. Angry and indignant, he said, you sure are impudent. Do you even know who I am? Chu Wanning glanced at him mildly. Who are you? I am the young master of Shizun Peak. Xuemeng was about to suffocate from indignation. How do you not even know this? The corners of Chu Wanning's lips quirked up slightly. The smile would have looked very mocking on his original face, but on his current childish, adorable face, it was even more infinitely mocking. You're just the young master, it's not like you're the sect leader. Why would I know of you? WH, what did you say? Quit putting on airs and practice your sword. Chu Wanning lowered his long lashes and went back to playing his leaf, the melody floating leisurely in the wind, notes rising and falling. Xuemeng could seriously die from how mad he was. He let out a yell and actually got into it with a little child. But no matter how mad he was, he still didn't want to hit a kid. So, he could only leap up and hack ruthlessly away at the bamboos, which broke and fell in batches amidst the serene melody. His blade was swift and vicious. After several flashes, dozens of bamboos had been carved into blunt points. Against an enemy, the points would have been razor sharp, but this was enough for teaching a junior disciple a lesson. Hundreds of pointed bamboo sticks fell directly toward Chu Wanning, and were mere inches from hurting him. Xuemeng rushed downwards to move this cheeky little disciple out of the way. He didn't actually want to hurt the kid, just to scare him a bit. But unexpectedly, in the same instant he rushed down, the child stopped playing and flicked the leaf between his fingertips. The tender bamboo leaf suddenly turning into hundreds of fine threads. Instantaneously, the hundreds of threads struck out toward the falling spikes with stunning precision. Even the wind seemed to stop flowing. Chu Wanning stood up. Simultaneously, the hundreds of spikes all around him became mere powder. Utterly obliterated. Xuemeng stood frozen in shock, face both pale and red, unable to manage even half a word. The little kid before his eyes looked up, silver blue uniform fluttering, and grinned at Xuemeng. You want to go again? Xuemeng. Your strikes are vigorous but without order. Too erratic and unsteady. Xuemeng opened his mouth, then closed it. Chu Wanning continued, start over from the sparrow form. Follow my music, go through each form in time with the segments of the tune and no faster than that. To be instructed like this by a little kid, Xuemeng's face became even more overcast, biting his lip and not moving at all. Chu Wanning didn't rush him, waiting quietly to see if Xuemeng would lay down his pride for the sake of improvement, if he would be willing to listen to a half-grown child. A while passed before Xuemeng suddenly stomped his feet in dejection, flung his sword and turned to leave. Watching him leave in a fit, Chu Wanning's expression darkened a little, thinking that it was truly such a pity that Xuemeng couldn't humble himself to accept guidance. But before he could even finish that train of thought, he saw Xuemeng pick up a branch from the ground and turn around to say huffily. Then I'll use a branch, just in case I hit you. Chu Wanning paused, then he nodded with a smile, all right. Xuemeng plucked a bamboo leaf for him and wiped it clean before handing it over. Here, Xiao Didi, for you. So he's Xiao Didi now, instead of kiddo? Note, Xiao Didi means little brother. Chu Wanning threw an amused glance at him, accepted the leaf, and sitting back down on the rock, leisurely started playing again. Xuemeng had a rash personality, This maneuver includes a move where the wielder leaps and turns in mid-air while unleashing 6 stabs followed by a strike. But Xuemeng never could get it quite right, often stabbing over a dozen times before the strike, which far misses the optimum window. Xuemeng messed it up 5, 6 times in a row, his brows drawing increasingly tighter as he grew more and more agitated. In his agitation, he caught a glimpse of the child sitting on the rock playing the bamboo leaf. Despite his tender years, he was the very image of composure, without even the slightest bit of complaint, and Xuemeng couldn't help the sense of shame that crept up. So he rallied his spirits and tried several more times, slowly getting a feel for it in the melody's rhythm. But he didn't get ahead of himself, keeping at it until late night, when the moon was hanging high in the sky, and he could finally complete the maneuver flawlessly. Xuemeng wiped at the sweat on his brows, exclaiming happily, "Today was all thanks to you. Which elder's disciple are you, Xiao Didi? You're pretty amazing, how did I not know about you before?" Chu Wanning was already prepared for the question. Suanji elder had many disciples, so many that he couldn't even remember them all. He put the leaf away and said with a small smile, "I am Suanji elder's disciple." Xuemeng seemed to think rather little of Suanji. He humphed, "Oh, the rubbish king, huh? Rubbish king? Ah, pardon me." Xuemeng misunderstood the surprise in Chu Wanning's eyes, and thought the child was upset that he had derided his Shizun. He smiled and explained, "It's just a nickname. Your Shizun accepts anyone and everyone. The rubbish part refers to those disciples of his that are completely talentless, not Suanji elder himself. Don't mind it, Xiao Didi." Chu Wanning, do you guys often give the elders nicknames in private? End chapter. Dumb Husky and his white cat Shizun. Chapter 53. This venerable one's cousin is certainly not very smart. Well, of course, they all get nicknames, no one is exempted. Xuemeng appeared to be in quite a good mood, eager to show Chu Wanning the ropes. "You look pretty young, what are you, 5? You must be new to Shizhung Peak then, haven't gotten to know everyone yet. Once you've settled in, you'll find out that the disciples have nicknames for all 20 of the elders." "Oh." Chu Wanning shot him an undecipherable look. "For example?" "Oh well, where do I even start? But it's getting late now and I'm kind of hungry. As thanks for all the pointers you gave me today, I'll take you for a late night snack down the mountain and tell you over food." Chu Wanning thought for a moment with his head lowered, then smiled, and said, "Mn, all right." Xuemeng put away Long Cheng and took Chu Wanning's hand. The unknowing disciple and the downsized master walking along the stone steps between the bamboo grove towards the main gate. "Xiao Didi, what are you called?" Xuemeng asked as they walked. Chu Wanning answered calmly, "My surname is Xia." "Xia what?" "Xia Sini." Note, sounds like scare you to death. Xuemeng completely failed to catch on, even happily asking, "That's a nice name. Written with which characters?" Chu Wanning glanced at him sideways with a look reserved for idiots, C as in disciple C, Nay as in disciple Nay. Xia Sini. Note, Chu Wanning was basically bullshitting Xuemeng with C like a disciple named C, Nay like a disciple named Nay. "Oh." Xuemeng, still grinning, kept asking, "And how old are you? Was I right before or what? You can't be older than 5. Chu Wanning's entire face with dark. Luckily for Xuemeng, he was looking at the road and not his face, or he would definitely get the scare of his life. "No, the young master guessed wrong. I'm 6 this year." "Xuemeng, then you're amazingly talented, but not quite as much as I was at your age of course. Anyway, with a bit of guidance, you'll definitely grow up to be outstanding. Say, why don't you quit being Suanji's disciple? Call me Shiji, and I'll go ask my Shizun to take you on as a disciple, how about that?" Chu Wanning managed, with an effort, to not roll his eyes. What did you say for me to call you? Shiji. Shuemeng, still grinning, bent down and flicked Chu Wanning's forehead. This is a rare opportunity, you know. Chu Wanning's expression was complicated. What? Speechless from overwhelming joy. Chu Wanning. The two laughed and chattered as they walked. At least, Shuemeng thought they were laughing and chattering when a voice suddenly came from behind them and ended this line of conversation that might have led to Shuemeng's untimely demise. Meng Meng, what are you doing here? On the entire Shizun Peak, to have the nerve to call Shuemeng Meng Meng, who else could it be? Shuemeng started cursing before he was even done turning his head. Note, Meng Meng Chinese equivalent of Momo. Mo Ran, you goddamn mutt, call me that one more time and I'll rip out your dog tongue. Sure enough, Mo Ran stood behind them under the clear moonlight, clothes fluttering in the breeze and an easy grin on his face. He was just about to throw a retort to tease Shuemeng some more when he noticed the dainty kid next to him and screeched to a halt. This is... Shuemeng pulled Chu Wanning behind him, glowering at Mo Ran. None of your business. No, 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 don't hide him away. Mo Ran circled around and grabbed Shuemeng's hand, pulling Chu Wanning back out and crouching down to give him a careful once-over. He made a questioning noise, muttering, "This kid looks awfully familiar." Chu Wanning, inwardly alarmed. "Feels like I've seen you somewhere before." Chu Wanning didn't like where this was going. If he got busted here, how will he ever face anyone ever again? He took a subconscious step back and turned to run. Hold it. Mo Ran grabbed him with a mischievous grin, then reached out and playfully swiped his nose and said in a soft voice, "Come, little ditty, tell Gag your name." The nose that just got swiped felt oily, awkward and self-conscious. Chu Wanning kept trying to back away. Mo Ran thought he was scared, and laughed as he said, "What are you hiding for? Be good and tell Gag, is your name Shuemeng?" Mo Ran pointed at Shuemeng and asked cheerfully, "Is he your papa? Tell the truth. This Gag will buy you candy." "What's your problem, Mo Weiu?" Shuemeng exploded, face bright red, feathers all ruffled. WH, what the hell are you thinking? Why, you're despicable. FF filthy. SH shameless. Chu Wanning was also speechless for a while, but secretly felt somewhat relieved. "My surname is Xia, Suanji Elder's disciple, Xia Sini. Scare you to death." Mo Ran caught the meaning immediately and his eyes curved into slivers of amusement. "Haha, how interesting. Seriously, what's wrong with you?" Shuemeng shoved Mo Ran away and said angrily, "He's my new friend, but out already. We're going for a late night snack, out of the way." "All right." Mo Ran moved out of the way, but then fell into step next to them, grinning and swaggering. Shuemeng roared at him. "What do you think you're doing?" "I want a bite to eat too," Mo Ran said innocently. "What, am I not allowed?" Shuemeng. Vachame Town. This small town was once infested with all manners of ghosts and ghouls, but thanks to the founding of Shizun Peak nearby, it gradually regained its peace over the years, and could even be called lively these days. It was late enough that the night market was already open. The group walked past the many stalls on the sides of the road and picked a Gudong Soup place, taking their seat at a low wooden table in the outdoor area. Gudong Soup uses a pot propped over a stove, with the fire burning while eating. The broth is generally very spicy, fresh. Raw ingredients are placed on the table and dipped into the boiling broth to be cooked at the time of eating. It was called Gudong Soup because of the gudong sound of food being tossed into the broth. This was a famed dish of the Chuanshu province, but Chu Wanning only ate it with clear broth free of peppers. Anything spicy made him choke. Shuemeng was born here, and Mo Ran grew up around Xiangtan. Both of them were used to spicy food, and naturally assumed that Xia Sini could also handle it. When they sat down to order, Shuemeng called out a bunch of dishes with familiarity, and added, with extra peppers and chili oil in the broth. But Chu Wanning suddenly tugged on his sleeve and said quietly, "I want twin pot." "What?" Shuemeng thought he had misheard. Chu Wanning's expression was dark, twin pot, half spicy, half mild. "Shuemeng, you aren't from here." "MN. Ah." Shuemeng nodded in understanding, but there was surprise in his eyes as he glanced at Chu Wanning. "To have left your home at such a young age, it's really so." "Sigh, never mind." He sighed and turned to the waiter, "All right, twin pot then." But there seemed to be a hint of resistance in Shuemeng's tone. Soon enough, he found that he indeed was not imagining things, that Shuemeng really was reluctant to just accept it, fussing incessantly as they waited for their food. "Shidi, when in Chuanshu, do as the Chuanshu people do. You gotta learn to eat spicy foods. How are you going to get friendly with people when you go out if you don't eat spicy food? You don't have to know the local dialect, but spicy food is non-negotiable." "Oh yeah, where are you from, anyway?" "Chu Wanning, Linen." "Oh." Shuemeng mulled it over, but knew little and less of that southern region, so he asked while nibbling on the tips of his chopsticks, "Do you guys eat rabbit heads over there?" Before Chu Wanning could even respond, Mo Ran had already piped up from the side with a smile, "Of course not." Shuemeng shot him a glare, and Chu Wanning also looked over at him. Mo Ran had a foot up on the wooden bench and an arm propped casually on his knee as he skillfully twirled the chopsticks in his hand. Seeing their reactions, he grinned and tilted his head. "What? Why the look, they really don't eat that." Shuemeng turned to ask Chu Wanning, "Is that true?" "MHM." Shuemeng went back to glaring at Mo Ran, "How did you know that? You been there?" "Nope." Mo Ran pulled a funny face, "But Shixing and our Shizun are from the same place. Don't you even know that Shizun doesn't eat rabbit head? When he picks cold dishes at Menpo Hall, it's either tofu with scallion or sweet lotus root with osman. Thus, look for yourself next time if you don't believe me." Chu Wanning: "Ah, I guess I never really paid attention before. I haven't had the guts to look at what's in Shizun's plate ever since that one time I saw his breakfast, too scary." Shuemeng rubbed his chin and let the distaste show on his face, "Shizun's tastes are really beyond words. Did you know? He actually eats savory tofu pudding." Chu Wanning. As he spoke, Shuemeng actually turned toward him and said, sincerely and with the utmost importance, "Little Shidi, definitely, absolutely, do not follow after Yuheng Elder, or no one will want to eat with you. Remember, rabbit head and spicy foods are both mandatory, and when you have tofu pudding for breakfast, do not eat it with savory sauce. Don't forget about the seaweed and dried shrimp." Mo Ran added. "Right, seaweed and dried shrimp too." It was a rare instance of Shuemeng and Mo Ran uniting against a common enemy. Absolutely unacceptable. Chu Wanning looked at the pair of idiots, face devoid of expression. Oh. Their dishes came in short order: fresh and crispy bamboo shoots, vividly green cabbage, tender tofu, succulent fillets of fish, thinly sliced rolls of lamb neatly piled on a porcelain plate, meat fried to a crunchy gold and sprinkled with cumin and pepper flakes, and a jar of freshly made soy milk on the side, the little table creaking under the weight. Food brings people together, especially a lively meal like Gudong Soup. A couple plates of lamb and a few cups of soy milk later, even Shuemeng and Mo Ran's strained relationship became more relaxed in the thick steam, at least for the time being. Shuemeng scoured the spicy broth with his chopsticks. "Oi, where's the brain I put in here? Isn't it attached to your neck?" Mo Ran laughed. "I meant the pig brain." Mo Ran bit his chopstick with an impish grin. "MHM, that's the one. You goddamn mutt dare insult me. Oh hey. Your brain floated up? Time to eat." Shuemeng walked right into his trap in a moment of excitement, yelling, "Put your dog paw away. Don't even think about stealing it, that's my brain." Chu Wanning sat on his little stool, leisurely drinking his jar of sweet soy milk while watching the brats bicker. He was in no hurry, the entire mild side of the pot was all his. He finished the soy milk and licked his lips as if wanting more. Mo Ran saw and asked with a smile, "Does little Shidi like it?" Chu Wanning took a moment to digest the fact that he was just called little Shidi and internally calculated the possibility of making him not do that, only to arrive at the conclusion that his chances are practically zero, so he could only reply dryly, "MN, it's not bad." So Mo Ran turned toward the waiter. "Excuse me, another jar of soy milk for my Shidi here." And so Chu Wanning contentedly began drinking a second jar. He had always loved sweets, but he got a cavity from eating too many pastries before, and Tanlang Elder had to go to quite the trouble to restore it for him. Since then, Chu Wanning has refrained from overindulging in sweets for the sake of his thin face. Being stuck as a kid had the unexpected benefit of letting him eat all the sweets he wanted. Mo Ran watched him eat with his cheek propped in a hand. "Your tastes are just like Shizun's." Chu Wanning choked a little but managed to maintain his placid expression. "Is Shikshan talking about Yuhang Elder?" "Yup." Mo Ran nodded with a smile as he pushed a steamer basket toward Chu Wanning. "Try this. I think you'll like it too." Chu Wanning picked up a leaf-wrapped steamed bun from the bamboo steamer and took a small bite. Warm steam gushed out from the bun, and inside the soft, glutinous wrapper was a sweet bean paste filling. "Do you like it?" Chu Wanning took another bite before nodding. "MN." Mo Ran smiled, "Then have some more." The three of them chatted while eating. Chu Wanning suddenly remembered the earlier subject, and, after finishing his fourth bun, asked Shuemeng with feigned nonchalance. "By the way, young master, you mentioned earlier that every elder has a nickname. If my Shizun Suanji elder is called the Rubbish King, then what's Yuhang elder's nickname?" End chapter. Dumb Husky and his white cat Shizun. Chapter 54. This venerable one fights over pastries. Shizun. Shuemeng's expression became serious for a few seconds. He's the only one who doesn't have any nicknames out of everybody on Shizun Peak. Nobody dares to joke about him. Bullshit, everyone knows that you like Shizun, so they just all hold their tongues around you. Mo Ran rolled his eyes, pulled Chu Wanning over, and whispered to him loudly, "Don't listen to him, I'll tell you out of everyone on Shizun Peak, Yuhang Elder is the one with the most nicknames." "Oh? Really?" Chu Wanning lifted his eyebrows slightly, showing the slightest bit of interest. For example, one of the more courteous ones would be White-Clothed Ghost. Note, reference to two deities who reward the good and punish the bad, one of them is clothed in white and the other is clothed in black. Why do they call him that? Because he only wears white clothes every single day. What else is there? Little Napa Cabbage. Why is that? Because he only wears white clothes every single day. What else? Big Mantu. Why? Because he only wears white clothes every single day. What else is there? Little Widow. Chu Wanning. Do you know why they call him that? Mo Ran was still laughing stupidly, totally unaware of the flicker of killing intent that flashed in Chu Wanning's eyes. It's because he only wears white clothes every single day. If Chu Wanning's temper hadn't been so good, he wouldn't have been able to retain his composure. What else is there? Ayo. Mo Ran glanced at Shuemeng's expression, and whispered softly in a voice that wasn't subtle at all. "If I say any more, I'm afraid that my cousin here might pour the entire hot pot over my head." Shuemeng slapped the table, gnashing his teeth angrily. "That's ridiculous. Who allowed them to make fun of Shizun like that? What sort of little Napa Cabbage or Big Mantu, not to mention Little Widow? Are they sick of being alive?" "Ah!" Mo Ran replied, simmering with laughter. "I can't believe you're already so upset because of these nicknames. You haven't even heard what the female disciples call Shizun. It'll give you goosebumps. Xuemeng's eyes widened. What do they call him? Mo Ran drawled lazily. What else could they call him? They're girls after all, bound to be more refined. Something like pear blossoms under the pale moon, the spring snows, surchu of linen, lotus blossom beauty. Heavens! Chu Wanning. Xuemeng. These nicknames are still fine. In comparison, someone like Tanlang Elder with such a terrible temper and average looks has much worse ones. Out of all of the 20 elders on Shizun Peak, the one that Chu Wanning had the worst relationship with was Tanlang Elder. Chu Wanning asked, what do they call him? Something like wintertime pickles or mustard greens, because his skin is dark. Mo Ran said, laughing. Meng Meng, don't make that face at me, you have your fair share of nicknames too. Xuemeng looked like he'd just swallowed a whole egg. What? Me too. Of course. Mo Ran said, grinning. Xuemeng tried to look like he didn't mind, and cleared his throat, asking, well, what do they call me? Fanny. Why? What do you mean why, isn't it obvious? Mo Ran shrugged his shoulders, uttering those words mirthfully, but couldn't resist any more and slapped the table, laughing. You're like a peacock fanning its tail feathers everywhere, ha 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 ha. Xuemeng bounded to his feet, howling in anger. Mo Ran. I'll kill you. By the time the three of them had eaten their fill and drank enough, it was already past midnight. They returned to Shizun Peak, and Chu Wanning was first sent off by the two stupid disciples to Suanji Elder's quarters. He bade them farewell. Xuemeng eagerly made plans to meet tomorrow near the bamboo forest, but Chu Wanning didn't know when he might turn back to his original form, and didn't dare to agree. Instead, he said that he'd come meet Xuemeng if he had free time. Chu Wanning waited until the two disciples had walked far away, and only then did he fly up lightly, stepping along the edges of roof tiles and making his way back towards Red Lotus Pavilion. The second morning, Chu Wanning woke up, and felt slightly dispirited after seeing that he was still stuck in a child's body. Chu Wanning stayed stone-faced, stepping onto a wooden stool, and stared at the person in the mirror for a long while. He felt as though he didn't have the motivation to comb his hair properly. After mulling things over, he felt like he couldn't take it anymore, and immediately went to find Xue Zhenyang. What? You saw Meng Er and Ran Er yesterday? Right, I said that I was Suanji Elder's disciple, and they didn't seem to doubt it. Chu Wanning said, but if Xuemeng comes to ask you, please remember to cover for me. But more importantly, I've already cultivated for more than 10 days, and nothing has really changed. This isn't working, I'll have to ask Tanlang to take a look after all. Oh ho, are you Hang Elder? And his thin face is suddenly not worried about losing face. Chu Wanning shot him a cold glance. However, such a look coming from a young child wasn't imposing at all, but rather looked like the child was throwing a fit. Chu Wanning was quite adorable as a child, and Xue Zhenyang couldn't help but to be slightly moved, reaching out to pat his head. Chu Wanning suddenly said, Sect leader, when my body returns to normal, could you ask Huan Shahal to tailor me a new set of Shizun Peak robes? Not white. Xue Zhenyang froze in shock. I thought you didn't like wearing light armor. Occasionally changing appearance is good too. Chu Wanning said with a dark expression as he walked away. Although Tanlang Elder wasn't on good terms with Chu Wanning, he had to hold himself back a little bit in the presence of their sect leader. He didn't sneer at Chu Wanning openly, but it was clear what he was thinking from his eyes. Chu Wanning looked up at Tanlang Elder expressionlessly. Tanlang's eyes were shining with glee, almost like there were fireworks going off in them. Chu Wanning. Madame Wang's diagnosis was more or less correct. Tanlang Elder let go of Chu Wanning's wrist after taking his pulse, and Chu Wanning immediately yanked his hand away and tugged his sleeve back down. Then why has there been no changes even after 10 days? Tanlang responded, although you didn't come into contact with much sap from the ancient willow tree, its effects are still pretty strong, so I'm afraid that it might take quite a long time to return to your original form. How long will it take? Chu Wanning asked him casually. Tan Lang said, not sure, but probably about 10 years. Chu Wanning's eyes widened immediately. Tan Lang Elder tried his best to keep a straight face, but his eyes were brimming with glee at Chu Wanning's misfortune. That's right, you'll need 10 years to return to your original form. Chu Wanning stared at him for a while, then said gloomily, are you misleading me? Perish the thought, I wouldn't dare mislead the great Yuhang Elder. Tan Lang said with a smile. Anyway, if you ask me, this is just fine. Your body's just smaller, your mentality slightly younger just a tiny bit, and besides, your cultivation is unaffected. What's the rush to go back to normal? Chu Wanning, ashen-faced, was speechless for a while. Tan Lang continued, however, during these 10 years, there's no guarantee that you'll take the form of a child the entire time. This type of tree sap migrates along the same paths as your spiritual energy, so if you don't use any spiritual techniques for 3 to 5 months, you should be able to turn back to your original form. That works too. Xue Zhenjiang's eyes lit up as if he was seeing the first light of dawn. But Tan Lang smiled and continued, Sect leader, don't be in such a rush, I'm not done explaining yet. Even after Yuhang Elder returns to his adult form, he still won't be able to use too many techniques, because once his spiritual energy becomes depleted from overuse, the willow sap will be able to exert its influence again, and he'll turn back into a child. Overuse? So how much would count as too much? Xue Zhenyang exclaimed. About that, since the sap has already spread throughout his entire body. Tan Lang Elder continued, at most, he'd only be able to use 2 moves per day. Chu Wanning spoke in a voice that was cold and hard as steel, the boundary to the ghost realm develops breaches that need repairing all the time. Forging golems also uses spiritual energy. If I can only use 2 moves a day, I would be as good as useless. Well, that's all I got, Tan Lang Elder replied sarcastically. After all, if the human realm suffered the loss of the Baidu immortal, even the sun might not rise in the west tomorrow. Xue Zhenyang fretted with worry. Tan Lang, quit it with the sarcasm already. Out of the entire cultivation world, your medical techniques are way ahead. Please think of something. Even if Yuhang's cultivation hasn't been affected, he's still in a child's body, so his abilities definitely aren't the same as before. Not to mention, if the other sects hear that Yuhang was injured at Jinjinj Lake, they might think to try something funny. 10 years is way too long, could you look for some medicines or something, that could maybe. Tan Lang Elder sneered and interrupted him mid-sentence, Sect leader, the sap that the Baidu immortal was infected with is from an ancient spiritual tree, not some common poison. Do you really think that I can just come up with a cure on the spot? Xue Zhenyang. That's enough for now, I have to go extract medicine for pills. Tan Lang said languidly. Why don't you two see yourselves out? Xue Zhenyang, Tan Lang. He still wanted to say something, but Chu Wanning pulled on the hem of his robes and said, Sect leader, let's go. When they reached the door, Tan Lang's voice suddenly floated over from behind. Chu Wanning, if you're willing to beg me properly and humbly, then who knows? I might be willing to help create a cure for you. Although I've never seen someone with your condition before, I might not necessarily be unable to help. So why don't you think about it carefully? Chu Wanning looked backwards and replied, what would count as properly and humbly? Tan Lang reclined on the couch, lazily sorting out the bundles of silver needles on the table, and raised his eyes at the sound of Chu Wanning's voice, disdain apparent in his eyes. When other people are at the end of their ropes, they get on their knees to prostrate themselves and beg for help. We're colleagues, so I won't ask you to get down and knock your head on the floor, but if you kneel and say some nice words towards me, then I'll help you. Chu Wanning said nothing, only gazing indifferently at him. Only after a while did he say, "Wintertime pickles, you must be dreaming." With that, Chu Wanning flicked his sleeves and left. Tanlang Elder was left there in a daze to figure out what wintertime pickles meant. The days trickled by slowly. Yuheng Elder declared that he was going into seclusion to meditate, when actually, he was stuck in the body of a child and couldn't return to his original form. Xue Zhengyang, Madame Wang, and Tanlang Elder found out about it one after another. To prevent the secret from being exposed, Suanji Elder was also informed. A few months passed in the blink of an eye. Red Lotus Pavilion's doors had been closed to visitors for quite a while, and Xuemeng and the others couldn't help but to be worried. Shizun has been in seclusion for more than 70 days now, why hasn't he come out yet? Maybe he's refining his cultivation level. Shi Mei took a sip of spiritual mountain dew from his cup, and looked up at the dark, overcast skies outside the window. It's going to snow and soon it will be the new year. I wonder if Shizun will come out before then. Mo Ran was flipping lazily through a manual of sword techniques, and upon hearing Shi Mei's words, said, "Probably not. Didn't he send us a message with his Haitang flower a couple days ago to say that it would be a while yet? I doubt he'll be out in time." It was a rest day on Shizhung Peak, when the disciples didn't need to practice cultivation. Mo Ran and the other two were gathered together to enjoy some freshly brewed tea and warmed wine. The bamboo curtains of the small pavilion in the yard were half drawn, the heavy curtains concealing its occupants, and steam wafted lightly from beneath. Lately, there's been a new addition who often hangs out with them, Suanji Elder's disciple, Xiaosini. Ever since that day when he met Xuemeng, Xuemeng had dragged him over to cultivate or play together every couple of days, and before long, the group had become inseparable. And so, Yuheng Elder's group of 3 disciples mysteriously got a fourth. At this moment, Chu Wanning, assuming the name Xiaosini, was seated in front of the table eating pastries. He ate in a refined manner, but the speed at which he ate wasn't lacking at all. Xuemeng glanced at him inadvertently, paused in surprise, then his gaze doubled back to the plate and he uttered in surprise, "Wow, little Shidi, who'd you inherit this bottomless stomach from?" Chu Wanning was chewing leisurely on a piece of Osman Thus cake. The cake was delicious and he didn't bother responding to Xuemeng. After all, there was somebody fighting over the food with him. Mo Ran and Chu Wanning's hands landed on the last piece of crispy lotus pastry at the same time. Their eyes shot up, and it seemed as if there was lightning crackling between their gazes. Chu Wanning, let go. Mo Ran, nope. Hands off. You've already eaten 8 pieces, this one is mine. You can have any of the other ones, just not the lotus pastry. Mo Ran glared at the little fellow for a while before pulling out his trump card, "Shidi, if you eat too many sweets you'll get cavities." "That's fine." Chu Wanning was very calm, "I'm 6, it wouldn't be embarrassing." Mo Ran. There was a loud pa, as Xuemeng's slap landed alongside his scathing complaints. "Mo Weiyu, how annoying can you get? How old are you already, to still fight Shidi for food?" The moment Mo Ran covered his head with an AO, Chu Wanning had already swiftly snatched the lotus pastry, hands quick and face expressionless, feeling quite satisfied as he took a small bite. "Shidi." Chu Wanning ignored him, totally devoted to nibbling on his sweets. The 4 of them were busy making a ruckus when a sharp whistling sound pierced through the skies, reverberating throughout all of Shizhung Peak. Chu Wanning's face fell. The gathering whistle. Xuemeng lifted up the hanging curtains halfway to look outside the window. The other disciples who had been walking outside also stopped in their tracks to look around with expressions of surprise. At the sound of the gathering whistle, everyone at Shizhung Peak must gather outside in the square in front of Loyalty Hall. This also meant that the whistle would only be blown when there was an emergency. Before Chu Wanning joined the sect, this whistle had sounded often whenever the Ghost Realm barrier had been breached. But since Chu Wanning's joining, the whistle hadn't been heard for a long time. Shi Mei put down the book in his hand and got up to walk to Xuemeng's side. How strange, what could be so urgent? Don't know. No point wondering, let's just go take a look first, Xuemeng answered. Only Mo Ran was silent. He pressed his lips together, and his eyelashes fluttered downwards, covering the flicker of something unnatural flashing across his eyes. He knew what this whistle foretold, but the timing was slightly different than he remembered. He didn't think that it would happen this soon. The four of them arrived at Shizun Peak, and the other disciples also came one after another. Before long, the entirety of Loyalty Hall was filled with all of the elders and their disciples. Once everyone had gathered, Xue Zhenyang walked out from the tightly shut doors of Loyalty Hall to stand before the jade-banded platform railing, above flights of limestone steps. 6 beautiful women followed behind him, some charming-looking, others cold-seeming, but all were impossibly gorgeous. They stood against the wind, wearing only thin muslin robes in such bitterly cold weather, and at a glance, their red skirts were like the clouds at dawn, their eyes seemed lit with scarlet flames amidst the delicate fluttering of silken ribbons, and the space between each of their eyebrows was marked with a crimson blaze. Xuemeng was stunned. Not only him, the expressions of just about every person in the hall changed upon seeing the 6 women. Xuemeng stared blankly for a long time before he managed to speak with a trembling voice, "Envoys of the feathered tribe. Did they come from Zuk, the land of immortals?" Note, Zagi, vermilion bird/phoenix, one of 4 mythical beasts. End chapter.